I think all art is inherently political, and this is whether the art itself is political commentary or not. Think about this, you could make a song about loving somebody or dancing with someone on the dance floor. The song fundamentally has no side, no message, no political commentary attached to it. But there are countries where the song cannot be written because the song wasn't allowed to be written. Because some countries have strict laws against this. Rage Against the Machine is a political band, let's say because of what they say. But a love song is political based on the fact whether you're allowed to say it at all, whether we want it or not. The act of living itself is political, and our art is shaped by that. In this video, I want to try and explore whether all art is political. Chapter 1. Can you say those things at all? Now we might be thinking, fine, no one's stopping me. I live in a normal place and nothing is banned here. So let's test this theory of ours. Are we actually free? Think of one thing that you actually believe in that you would not post. Not that it's illegal, just because that would cost you something. Friends, work, job opportunities, or maybe criticism. And there, you found it. You know where the line to your freedom is. That one thing you cannot post is a limit of what you can say in your current environment. Now, who told you this? Nobody told you not to post it. There's no law about it. You worked it out yourself, and there's a name for this. In 1791, a philosopher named Jeremy Bentham designed a prison called the Panopticon. In this, prison cells were placed in a ring and a guard tower in the middle, and the tower's windows were blacked out. So the prisoner could never tell whether the guard was watching them or not, which meant that all the prisoners started behaving like someone was always watching. 200 years later, Michael Foucault spelled this out even more, that you don't need a guard in the tower. You in fact don't need a tower at all. Once people are watching themselves, power runs without anyone operating it. Prisoner does all the work of the guards for free. And that panopticon is where we live in right now. And this is the part I feel we always get wrong about politics. We always think it's the government, but the government is made up of people. It comes out of a society and holds the values of the society, which means the values of any given society come first. The law is only the part of those values which gets written down and put into legal action. So politics then becomes the actionable part of our values. It's what leaves our collective heads and does something to someone else. So the tower in the panopticon isn't the state. It is everyone else around you. It is the cultural values of where you live in, with the majority agreeing on what's acceptable. And nobody ever held a vote for this. A lot of art may never talk about politics. The artist may never think about politics. But the fact that they're allowed to think at all is because of politics. And it gets deeper than that. When you don't have freedom of expression, you're explicitly not allowed to think of certain things. Some thoughts are bad thoughts, and they must be stopped. A political theorist called Stephen Lukes wrote in 1974 that the most effective kind of power isn't stopping people from getting what they want. It's in shaping what they want in the first place. And this leaves no conflict, because nobody wants what they can't think of in the first place. So you try and shape the minds of the people you rule over, and then the panopticon makes you watch over each other to make sure each other's behaviors are correct. And this panopticon makes you stop looking for answers and makes you think that you're actually free. Chapter 2. Freedom of expression. Freedom of expression, I feel, may be one of the highest value systems there is. A lot of governments would say that eradicating hunger is higher, or feeding people is higher. Let's feed people first and then we can think later. And here I would argue with the point, even though I get that point of view. Freedom of expression and thought allows you to think in tangents which would anyway eradicate hunger. Amartya Sen spent his career on this. No major famine has happened in a functioning democracy with a free press. And this is not because democracies are nicer, but because you can't hide a famine from a government that can be voted out. So all the flaws and all the good parts are all shown and seen. It was never about speech or food. Speech is how the food arrives. When you let people think freely, they come up with creative solutions. And creative solutions are solutions to problems, such as how do I feed such a large population? How do I manage all these people? What systems can be designed to make the functioning of society better? All society, if you think about it, is man-made. Nothing here existed. The city was made by humans. These systems are made by humans. These laws are made by humans. Roads, schools, money, all of it is man-made. Everything was made by a bunch of human beings no smarter or no stupider than you. And how did these systems come up? Through acts of creativity. And free thinking and creativity allows people to attack problems which did not have solutions before them. So if your acts of creativity and thinking are limited, you're also limited in your ability to think of solutions to problems you might face. Problems which you might have not even hit yet. And this is something that I don't think is connected back. That freedom of speech is not about speech. That freedom of expression is not about expression. It is about the freedom to be able to think or finding solutions to problems inventively. The obvious objection here is that some thoughts are dangerous. Fine, but a thought only becomes dangerous when it's put into action. And at that point, it's in the real world with real laws. And the real world has rules. But art and creativity aren't that. Art is the purest form of expression in a pure thesis form. It's a thought made into a thing, which still does not have social ramifications, which is why it is art and not design. So punishing art isn't punishing an action, it's punishing a thought for existing. And once thinking costs you something, you stop thinking. And once people stop thinking, society stagnates and drowns in its own nonsense. Chapter 3. The thought they want you to think. Authoritarian governments are amazing users of art. And most of humanity has been authoritarian governments. It's the norm, not the exception. Democracy, if you think about it, is a very young thing. And it's still highly contested and not everywhere in the world. So almost all of art history that we know was commissioned by the state. And it's not because the kings loved painting, but because the king wanted to sanction specific thoughts that he wanted his people to have. The courts and the churches and the religious institutions of the day were handing out the commissions. The Sforza in Milan, the Medici and the French crown. All of these were the connoisseurs of the arts back in the day. Take these commissions out of the Renaissance and perhaps none of it exists. So when we walk through a museum, we're not looking at the best work of the period. We're looking at the work that someone with money agreed to preserve. Everything else that was made at the time which had no patrons, all of that art and thought is lost. Which means that most of the freest and most original thinkers in history have never been recorded. Nobody paid to preserve their work. Now why does power bother with preserving some art and not others? Because a single person rule is more concerned with legacy than systems. A system outlives the man while legacies need him to be alive. Think about the Romans. We just remember the dictators and the conquerors and the kings. But before that there were 600 years of democracy. Do you remember the names of who were in power back then? Which is exactly why emperors and kings and authoritarians commission a lot of art. And notice what doesn't happen here. Nobody bans the art which is not about the emperor. There's no order, the paintings aren't burnt, mostly they're just left to the sideways. Power doesn't have to suppress anything. It just has to not pay for it, it just has to ignore its existence. Not censorship, but indifference. And indifference doesn't leave a record of what it was indifferent towards. Which is why when we look back at history, we think it never happened. I read this quote recently and it really stuck with me. Isn't it hilarious that all the good guys always won throughout history? Well, of course they did, because they were the ones who paid for the record. Some of the freest thinkers in human history have been lost, and we may never know their work or what they stood for. So is all art political? I think so. Not just because of what it says, but because of what it's allowed to be. If you stayed for so long, thank you so much for watching, and please let me know in a comment that do you think all art is inherently political? If you like the work I do here, please click join below and become a fuzzculture community member. It really helps me to keep creating these videos. As a musician myself, here's a song I made recently that I'm really proud of, and I'm excited to share that I'm almost done with new music that I'll share really soon. And if you prefer more of these talking head style of essays, here's a video that I think you might like. If you liked or felt anything, please leave a comment. I would love to connect with you.